Bag Views. It's James Kalm, your half-assed reporter, the guy on the bike. And we are in bottom of the East Village. We're going to take you in and give you a special art historical buff up on a very interesting artist. But first, we got a shout out to our friends in Detroit, Zurich, and North Wales. We're going to drop into the Eric Firestone Gallery and check out an exhibition titled Mosaic is Light, work by Jeanne Reynal, 1940 to 1970. Stay tuned. Okay. Well, I came in last night and took a run through the show, and I started to do some recording, but I got in about 10 minutes before closing time. And then I decided I would have to come back and spend some quality time looking at the work. I'll read a little bit from the press release. Jeanne Reynal, 1903 to 1983, was a mosaicist and a first-generation New York school artist. She challenged expectations of the medium by creating, as she described, a new art of mosaics, a contemporary and fresh look for this ancient medium. Her work was largely abstract, and she was dedicated to the ways in which hand-cut stones and glass tiles set on a base could reflect and create light across the surface. She applied teresa, which is the tiles, stones, and shells used to construct her mosaics, in loose formations to a ground of pigmented cement. Her work was often subtle and painterly. She was born in White Plains, New York, and she apprenticed from 1930 to 1938 with Boris Anrep, a Russian mosaicist working in Paris. She spent World War II years living in San Francisco and in the Sierra Nevada. Her first solo exhibition was held in Los Angeles in 1940. During her California years, Reynal also developed a lifelong friendship with Ishmael Noguchi, who had enrolled voluntarily in internment camp to aid other Japanese Americans. She collaborated with Noguchi on several mosaics for tables of his design. And it goes on, but it also talks about her having a show with Betty Parsons, I guess, maybe in the mid-50s. All right, came in for the opening of the show, which was a couple of weeks ago at a Lower East Side late night gallery crawl. And as usual, I got here about 30 seconds before closing time. And this is a good example of some of Jeanne's, I guess what you call the middle period. This is titled Amarillo, 1960. It's untitled 1959. Small T and semi-precious stones. Okay, so we've got some, looks like amethyst, maybe obsidian. This piece is 60 by 40. Well, as I said, I came in and saw the opening and was fascinated with the work. I've done a lot of mosaics myself over the years, and I thought this was pretty extraordinary in that way, but I think there's also an art history aspect of this that is worth noting. This is African Village, 1969-1970. Mosaic Teresa Horn, mother of pearl and concrete. And yes, this has got a lot of interesting elements. I like the horns, and she's doing a real interesting job of kind of combining a certain kind of surrealism with primitive, maybe even fetishistic fetish art, tribal fetishes. This is titled Songs of the Tiwa, 1959. Small T and dyed Japanese shell on pigmented cement. Well, when I see this kind of work and I think about a career like Joan and sort of wonder, why some people get sanctified into the history of modern art and some people don't. And I think one of the reasons was that, and I was just talking with Jennifer Samet, is that the work is difficult. I think Jennifer said it was heavy and dangerous. And I think Eric said something to the effect that one of these wall pieces could easily weigh several hundred pounds. This is titled Rain Shadows, 1959. This is 66 by 56. I think the other interesting thing is if you were to compare this to some of the stuff that was happening in the New York painting scene, that in certain ways this kind of relates to maybe the beginnings of some of the more minimalist or color field painters, maybe Milton Resnick or Robert Ryman. Well, I was looking at the work, thinking about it, and doing some research on the backstory, and it turns out that Jeanne was, I guess, a young artist involved in the downtown New York scene, the beginnings of the New York School, and met and knew people like Arshil Gorky and his wife Magooch and Rothko and Barnett Newman. And Jeanne was one of the first people to buy a Jackson Pollock painting back from Peggy Guggenheim, maybe in 1943-44. And she moved out to the Bay Area and parts of Northern California. And then I started to think about a whole group of kind of expatriated surrealists who had started a little group out there in Northern California called the Dynaton movement. I think Wolfgang Palin was one of them, and Lee Mulliken, Matt Mulliken's dad. Luchita Hurtado was one of them. And, well, she also became very close friends with the director of the Museum of Modern Art. I believe it was Dr. Grace Morley. And I guess she was actually advising Dr. Morley on a lot of her acquisitions and just kind of focusing her interest on what was happening in New York. And I believe also that Joan had some shows out there believe she had a one-person show at one point and was kind of even advising the curators on other things. This is titled Africa, King and Queen. It's 1970. Mosaic Teresa, Japanese shell, concrete and steel. And she's got like a very simple palette, but using the mother of pearl and some of these other elements is very seductive. Thinking Ned Smythe, one of the stars of pattern decorative, was doing a lot of work like this in the late 70s. I think one of the extraordinary things about Jeanne's work is that it really approaches the painterly in a kind of strange way, in that she uses the grout, the base, the concrete, that she embeds the Teresa, the tiles and the stones in as a kind of a painting medium. It's titled Reincarnation Lullabies. So this is Japanese shell and pigmented cement. And these are 4 panels that are 57 inches square, so we're talking about 160 inches across, maybe 14 feet. Now, I believe these works are earlier. So we're looking at the works between the 1940 and 1970. We got a 30-year period there. This is titled Icarus Return, 1951. Smalty, marble, and pigmented cement on board. As I was saying, I was doing some research, and it turns out that Joan also did paintings. We don't get a chance to see any of those, but I think that this work is extremely painterly. You know, the other thing I was thinking is that probably a lot of people that made careers on work like this that didn't even know Joan, or maybe only slightly benefited from a lot of the maybe foundational things that she was doing. Name that I was thinking of was a gentleman named Ned Smythe, who was a big player in the pattern and decorative movement in the mid to late 70s, and has had a wonderful career and has been doing a lot of public projects, and a lot of his work looks like the columns that are out in front. And the other person I was thinking that this makes me kind of think about is Nikki Sanfala. This is a table that was done in collaboration with Ishima Noguchi. It's concrete. It looks like it's been painted too. It's 1943. This is a wonderful little piece titled Equation Number 2, 1940, 23 by 20. Mosaic Teresa in concrete. And some of this just looks like stone. I believe this is reproduced in an essay that was put out by the Museum of Modern Art that showed an installation photograph of her show. I'm not sure, I think it was 1943, 45, something like that. This is Blue Window. Smalty marble and pigmented cement on board. And they really are painterly. I was actually looking at this and thinking about some of George Barak's very chunky and materialistic paintings. And so George was not only kind of pushing realms in mosaic, the very ancient technique. God, that's interesting with the little yellow concrete that the chunks are stuck in. But also kind of what I've been calling the material painters. People like Antonio Tepes. Ogo, 1952 to 53, smalty marble, sulfur and pigmented cement on board. Okay, so she's got the sulfur in there. And, well, that's very alchemical. I think this one really does get into a more painterly kind of thing. It's also interesting, she's playing off the color of the ground, the grout, the cement with the things that she's laying in on top. And so that is kind of a painterly approach. And this one really has flat areas of color. Okay, that's great. This is titled The Stallion, 1952. It's 53 by 48. I wonder how much this weighs. So it's kind of fascinating to see the way that she'll mix in the chunks of glass that are solid colors, and then she'll have an analogous color near that, but it's transparent, or maybe even has mirrored gold leaf or something on one side, and you get this great contrasts of color qualities, which I think goes to the title of the show, Mosaic is Light. I wonder if she's got amethyst in there. Okay, we'll take a look at the last part of the show down here. We've got a little video. We don't have time for this, but Jeanne Reynal. Okay. It's titled Young Friends. Okay, this is a beautiful little piece. This is 19 by 15, 1949. Okay. Some ephemera. Oh gosh, there's a little note to her from Marcel Duchamp. Betty Parsons. I think John must have been quite an interesting character. And I think that probably her her time in California kind of shaped her in a certain way. That was during the period when a lot of the proto-beatniks, proto-hippies were sort of forming. It's titled Mother and Child Between Sun and Moon, 1966. Well, I like the line in the video where they were talking about Joan choosing a medium that's over 5,000 years old. And I think this piece is nice because it's a little brighter than some of her pieces from the 40s and 50s. And I think this one, she's really using the color of the pigmented concrete in the background to its best effect, and just really playing a much lighter palette, so you get a chance to see the color and the color harmonies of her tesserae, her chips of glass. Winter Court, small team, mother of pearl, obsidian and pigment and cement on wood, 77 by 40. Well, I was talking about the way that I thought that Jeanne probably influenced a lot of things that she didn't even think about, and I'm looking at this and thinking of the whole pattern and decorative movement. And that was coming out of kind of partially it was feminism, partially it was a new awareness to, I guess, what would be called the third world and the world of crafts and forms of art that hadn't been accepted into the, at least not into the New York academic classifications, institutional classifications of high art. Sort of kind of an interesting series of works. These are all untitled. 1963. Okay, I'm looking at this and also sort of thinking about, well, the ceramicist artists, some of the California artists, Peter Volkus and some of those folks. Although this does have a kind of 1950s, 60s feel, kind of what do they call it, the nuclear style, the look of the modular rounded edges. Got some great things going on with the color here. And then the way that they're sort of displayed as just little objects, I think is nice. James Kalm reporting on Jeanne Reynal, Mosaic is Light. Her works from 1940 to 1970. You can like this. Share. Post it to all your social media sites. And you can leave your thoughts, ideas, comments, and criticisms below. We just ask you to say, as we always do, thank you, Kate. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew the artist, or the artist Andrew.